And then the other thing too is what type of advisor is that? Is that somebody who works with everybody? Because, if they're working with 30-year-olds and 40-year-olds and you're in your 60s going to retire, very, very different type of, approach for those age timeframes, right? Welcome to Wealth Creator Radio, where we help people overcome the uncertainty of having enough retirement income. I'm your host, Eric Heckman, a certified financial planner with over 30 years of experience. We want you to enjoy life and not have to wonder where your money will come from and how long it'll last. My mission is to show you how to develop a personalized income plan so you can retire more and have worry less wealth. Here at Wealth Creator Radio, we cut through the noise and get straight to what matters. We understand that the world of retirement planning can be filled with confusing products, ever-changing tax laws, and volatile markets. That's why we're here to help successful people like you navigate the uncertainty and create a blueprint for a thriving, work-optional life.
Pillars are a classic feature of architecture. I think we can all think of one or two well-known structures with those solid columns, out in front. And you think about, what would happen if one of them toppled down, right? The whole thing might come down. Well, it's the same for retirement. And we're going to get into that here in just a minute. Thank you for joining us today. You are listening to Wealth Creator Radio with Eric Heckman. I'm Lou Ann Fulmer. Eric is a certified financial planner. He's been helping people like you have remarkable retirements for over 30 years now. And it's Eric's mission and his team's mission to help you plan for lifetime income, to help you weather almost any economic storm that happens throughout your retirement. Call or text the word visit to 800-454-1184. The appointment is complimentary. Remember, you can get that digital toolbox as well. We'll be talking about that. Listen for your chance to text the word toolbox to 800-454-1184. It includes the books that Eric has written. And our podcast comes out every Tuesday morning. So wherever you listen to podcasts or on YouTube, search for Wealth Creator Radio. And Eric, hello to you. So excited to be here with you.
Yeah, Luann, it's always good to kind of get back to the basics and, talk about those main pillars of retirement and what the main things that people need to be thinking about, because sometimes we get distracted with all the shiny objects or whatever you want to call it, right? So sometimes just going back to the fundamentals is good.
Right. So looking at the St. Joseph Basilica, and the pillars there, I mean, such beautiful architecture and old, and it really does matter, I think, if something would happen to one of those structures, it would affect, the entire building, right?
Yeah. So, anytime you're talking about those structural pillars, those things that hold up the whole thing, right? That's kind of can be related to retirement income. And, retirement income, there's a couple different things you want to look for. And, you never get all of these things in one product. So it's more about a combination of all these things, right? So one is protection, right? You don't want to be retired and have another 08, 09 meltdown and boom, half your money goes away, right?
Right.
But you're going to hopefully be retired for 30 plus years. So you also still need that growth. You still need some of that money growing to combat inflation and, have that money getting bigger. Of course, the only thing you have to have in retirement is income, because otherwise you're just unemployed, right?
Yeah.
So you have to have some income. Some of that stuff has to be not just going up in value, but it has to actually be paying dividends, interest, something that you can withdraw, right, on a monthly basis. And then you need some of that money liquid, because the fridge dies, the roof needs to be repaired, fence blows over, whatever junk happens, right? Life happens. You need some money that's going to be something that you can go grab, in those times where you need that money.
Liquid money, right? Yeah.
Yep.
So tell us the kind of risk you're exposed to if you do not have a 4-pillar retirement like you just mentioned.
Well, if you just think about the 401k is pretty much it's all stocks and bonds. So I call that all market money. So that's all growth potential stuff. It has zero protection. There's usually no options in there to protect yourself from, the values dropping. You might have a money market or something like that. That might be a little bit, but, really not anything. When I look at most people's, their portfolios, the average dividend yield, and how much the interest and dividends pay, is almost always 1.5%. It's super rare if I ever see anybody over 2, and usually most people are at least at 1. So it's really somewhere in the ones.
Okay.
And so if you need 4 or 5% out of your portfolio in retirement, and you're only getting one, from dividends and interest, that means you're having to sell shares every single month to get by. And so then, if the market drops that month, you've now locked in those losses. If it drops again, you're locking in even more and more, right? So that's kind of the big risk that you run is when's that downturn? When you're selling shares, the market never goes up straight line, right? It's always all over the place. And so, you're potentially losing a lot because of you don't have some of that money protected and you don't have anything set up for income. I mean, you might have liquidity in like a bank account and stuff, but usually for most of the investments, they can be liquid, but liquid if the market goes down is not so good, right? You want some money that's protected where it won't go down. So that's the biggest risk I find most people run into in retirement.
Okay. Eric, let's talk about then that protection part of our retirement plan. What are we protecting our money from?
Good question. Protecting it from loss, right? Protecting it from it going away. So there are some great tools out there. Ones from insurance companies where they'll pay you a rate based on the stock market. I like to use these in place of bonds. So, a lot of these, they can pay, say, 10% if the market goes up 10%. And so what they do is look 1 year later and how much did the S&P 500 change? If it's anywhere from 0 to 10, you get that number. If it's more than 10, well, all you get is 10. But if it's negative anything, you get 0. You don't lose a dime. And you get to start off at a lower, point in the index. So there's, a lot of higher odds that next year of you getting that 10%. So those can be really good because you can take money out of those. Usually most of them let you take out 10% a year. So you could be doing your withdrawals from there, especially when the market's down. That's where you want to take the money from, something that didn't lose money, right?
Right.
And then when the market goes back up, then you can decide which way you want to take the money from. But those over time should average 5 to 9% or so. So a lot better than bonds with zero risk. And so that's a good, easy way to learn more about how to protect your money. And so one of the things that we also have is we're very big about education here. So we've got a digital toolbox that has a couple different things that you read, like, will I outlive my money, which you don't want to do. What's the correct timing for Social Security? Are you paying too much money in taxes and retirement? Copy of my book, Worry Less Wealth, and even a way to set a time to talk with me, Eric Heckman. So if you want to get access to that, super easy. We'll send you the link. All you got to do is text the word toolbox to 800-454-1184. Again, text the word toolbox, 800-454-1184, or go online and download it directly at wealthcreatorradio.com.
And you're listening to Wealth Creator Radio with Eric Heckman of Heckman Financial. I'm Lou Ann Fulmer. All right, let's talk about growth potential. Obviously, we need our money to grow. That's our income in retirement. I think immediately, though, our minds go to investments when we think about growing our money. Is there a way to grow it without investing in the markets, Eric?
Well, I mean, like the index annuity type stuff that we mentioned, that's one option that can grow pretty good and still earn some good interest. There's some alternative investments that are actually investments, but they're not maybe daily traded in the markets. And, a lot of those things like private equity, real estate, other things, those can give you some good growth and, without as much of the volatility up and down. So, it's always, again, it goes back to that, that 4-letter word plan. If you get a plan, then this can all work out. But if you're just kind of doing it by just whatever you see that day or whatever makes sounds good on the radio or on the TV, that's not really a great way to do it. You want to have a plan.
Another pillar that we were talking about for a sturdy retirement would be income. And that kind of, is a pillar that supports really every other pillar. Where do people get their income in retirement from?
Well, most only have Social Security and rarely have a pension. So really they're just getting their income from whatever dividends. And like I said before, they don't get much. So they're usually having to sell assets all the time. So that's a very overlooked area of designing some money that has some super high income. That's what we always have what I like to call steady income section, where we put 10 or 20% into things that pay a lot of income. So that way you don't have to sell as many shares. You got some cash flow building up.
Love it. And then the fourth pillar, liquidity. Again, talk about why that's so important.
Yeah, well, you always want to have that. My sons were scouts. I was a scout, and my youngest made Eagle. And you want to be prepared, like the scouts say. So you want to have that be prepared fund that allows you to have some money that usually about 6 months of expenses. So that way you can go pay for that new fridge, pay for whatever home repair, whatever comes up. So again, we can get a lot more data and a lot more stuff to read and educate yourself. Some really quick things to read and review, but not stuff that takes a ton of time. So the easiest way to do that is just by texting the word toolbox to 800-454-1184. Again, text word toolbox, 800-454-1184, or download directly at wealthcreatorradio.com.
Thinking about healthcare costs, long-term care expenses, and income needs in retirement? How will you afford it all? And what can you do now to help ensure your loved ones will be okay when you're gone? Eric Heckman at Heckman Financial has access to tools and strategies that can help you pursue your retirement dreams without taking on too much risk with your money. Interest rates are the highest they've been in decades, so take advantage of this seemingly once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to help protect your retirement before it's gone. Learn about the tools and features available today that could provide bonuses, potentially adding up to tens of thousands of dollars in additional income when medical needs arise. Schedule your visit with Eric Heckman at Heckman Financial today by calling 800-454-1184. That's 800-454-1184. These opportunities won't last forever, so call now to help protect your future. 800-454-1184.
Hi, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Luann Fulmer here with Eric Heckman. When we think about risks to retirement, it's natural to focus on the big dramatic market downturns, right? Like those we've seen in the past and we're going to see in the future, of course. But those are not the only threats. The looming possibility of higher taxes, persistent inflation, and other challenges all contribute to the very real fear of outliving our savings. So, Eric, with so many risks coming from every direction, tell us how retirees can stay ahead of these challenges.
Yeah, well, there's some stuff you can't, really do anything about, right? Inflation's not something that you can control or, get a say-so in. So it's just a matter of making sure you account for it. And so in your planning, make sure that money is going up over time. You would not want to, if you're working right now, you would not want to be making what you made 20 years ago, most likely. And same thing in retirement. You don't want to be 20 years into retirement and making the same thing you were 20 years earlier because, just won't be as good, right? And so that's one of the things that you have to do. The other one is just really having an income plan. The income plan is really the key because once you look at that income plan, you can say, okay, well, which bucket of money should I take money out of first? Like I've got a client who's about to retire here in April, and he's a pretty high up guy at Apple. And so he's been making lots of good money for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
But in next year, he won't be on Social Security. He won't be getting the big stock options or anything like that anymore. So, his income will be, probably won't be low, but his income will be lower. And so, now we can do some other stuff, some tax planning. But as we go along, once you have Social Security coming in, then you get more income. And then, of course, when you're having to take money out of your retirement accounts, even if you don't need it, then you even have more income. So, you got to plan for when those income time periods are lower and grab some of that and pay some taxes then, right? When it's low. But most people will do the exact opposite. They'll say, oh, no, I'm just going to wait. I'm going to wait till later, let it defer. And ouch.
Right. Yeah. So taxes, they're a huge concern for people. And then, you look at our national debt, where we are now. What is it now, Eric? 37 trillion or so? So,
yeah, right around there.
Yeah. So we know it's going to affect us somehow. They're going to have to, taxes are going to have to go up, I would think.
Well, yeah. That you can kind of try to pretend in some sort of a Pollyannish world that you can just cut costs to the point where, there's somehow you're not going to spend any money, but that's not how the federal system's set up. More than the entire economy, the amount that that we get from all the taxes, all the revenue. So think of it as if this was you and your household income, meaning for the country, isn't even enough to cover the interest on the debt, Social Security, Medicare.
Oh my.
So the cost of the government's on top of all that.
Right.
So that's like saying your spendings, you're doing all the spending, but your mortgage is on top of that. Well, that's not good, right? You're going to be going backwards. So, that's one thing that anytime you hear any politician trying to either preserve tax cuts or give you more tax cuts, that they're cutting income. They're lowering their revenue. And then that means that they're putting it on that credit card, the national debt credit card.
Mm-hmm.
And history shows us throughout civilizations that, once countries get a lot of debt and stuff, that's what makes them crumble. That's what can really cause issues. So yeah, that's one thing to be worried about because of, taxes cannot go down. Realistically, we have to, we have to at some point pay the bills, and whether or not that's a small thing or it's something sudden where nobody wants to buy our debt anymore. And, it gets to be a huge issue. So, that's why, you really want to have a plan. You want to know, okay, how can I lower my taxes today? How can I lower my taxes? Really should be the bigger question should be, how do I lower over my lifetime? And that's the question people don't ask enough. And so when we're meeting with people and we're talking to people and we're helping them with that income plan, we go through that blueprint to worry less wealth, where we figure out, where's that income going to come from? Will it last for the rest of their life? Hopefully, yes. And then beyond that, how is that money invested? Is it going to be able to put off that income? What are the tax ramifications? So income, investments, taxes, all very interdependent. And then healthcare issues. Who gets your money, legacy issues when you're gone. Those are the 5 areas that you have to have a plan for. And that's what we do in the blueprint to worry less wealth, and something we can help you with. And so what we've done is we've actually set up a lot of educational materials for people for, just a quick read. So you can read about a 10-page thing about making sure your money lasts as long as you do, the Social Security timing decisions. Are you paying too much taxes in retirement? All these really critical things to know about. You can have a copy of my book, Worry Less Wealth, and even set up a time to talk with me, Eric Heckman. So all you got to do, super easy, just text the word toolbox to 800-454-1184. Again, text the word toolbox, 800-454-1184, or download directly at wealthcreatorradio.com.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us today. You are listening to Wealth Creator Radio with Eric Heckman of Heckman Financial. And so we're talking today about, tackling the threats of taxes and inflation, among other things, in our retirement. Let's talk about steps that retirees can actually take right now to prepare for future tax increases. What are you helping your retirees with?
Well, yeah, one of the big ones is doing Roth conversions. So what does that mean? A lot of times people don't fully get that. That's when you're choosing to pay taxes even though you don't have to. Ouch, right? Nobody wants to do that.
Right.
And so why would somebody be crazy enough to do that? Well, if you're in a lower bracket now and you can pay that tax today, we're not talking $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 Roth conversions. We're talking 20 to 50. We're talking smaller dollar numbers. So you pay the taxes today. That not only does that now get rid of the tax for the rest of your life, but all the tax on that growth is gone for the rest of your life too. So that can be a huge amount of money depending on when you're doing it, how early you're doing it. And what we find is that it really, really makes a huge difference in somebody's lifetime income, how they're getting that money. The other thing too is making your other money tax efficient. And so this is something that I find a lot of people also don't pay attention to. And what I'm talking about there is like I had some clients that had inherited some money, and so they left a lot of it in CDs and bank accounts. And, it was from dad and they didn't want to take a lot of risk with it, right? Mm-hmm. Well, when we were looking at how much taxes that was causing them, and this is not money they're using, this is not money they need, it's just sitting in the bank, literally. So, but it was causing them to jump up into the next tax bracket even. And so if you can make that money also more tax efficient with your taxable dollars, then you're going to pay a lot less in tax. So again, most people, most financial advisors, they say, oh, well, we don't do tax advice. And then talk to the tax person, well, we don't do financial advice. And so nobody's getting this advice. So it's really awful. So yes, taxes have to be a key component of your planning.
So one of the things that is kind of nerve-wracking is that Congress could change the rules at any time, right? So we've got to plan for higher taxes. But that kind of feels like, we have no idea what to expect. So how are you helping your clients prepare for future taxation when it's unpredictable?
Yeah, no, definitely a good question. And, it's something where it's like you're playing Monopoly and then all of a sudden you're not supposed to buy this place or you can buy this place or, all of a sudden the stack of cards are different. how do you keep playing this game if the rules keep changing? But just be used to it, right? It's just going to be always the case. So really what we do with people is just making sure that they can have as much money as tax efficient. So doing stuff with Roth, doing stuff with, especially designed life insurance, other things that can be tax free, even just making things more tax efficient. So it's really just focusing on that and knowing that every 3 to 5 years, the rules of the game are going to change and we're going to have to get back together and figure that out. But, again, that's why we have stuff like, are you paying too much in taxes in retirement set up in the digital toolbox? So if you want to grab a copy of that, all you have to do is text the word toolbox to 800-454-1184. Again, text the word toolbox, 800-454-1184, or download directly at wealthcreatorradio.com.
If something's worth doing, it's worth doing right. There's a particular time of life this phrase couldn't be more appropriate. How can you know you'll live the retirement you've always imagined? After all, life can be so unpredictable. You've worked hard and saved. Watch your accounts go up and down with the market. Your advisor says, don't worry, you'll be fine. But you still don't feel confident. Eric Heckman at Heckman Financial has a checklist to help you find out if you're on the right track for retirement. If you can check all the boxes with confidence, you may be ready for retirement. If not, Eric can help you address any potential costly mistakes. To get Eric Heckman at Heckman Financial's complimentary checklist, call or text LIST to 800-454-1184. Call or text LIST to 800-454-1184. Firm offers insurance services. Investment advisory services offered through Heckman Financial and Insurance Services, Inc. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal.
Hi, I'm Lou Ann Fulmer here with Eric Heckman, president of Heckman Financial right here in Silicon Valley. In 2022, inflation soared to a 9.1%. That's the highest level since 1981. It hit everybody hard. But for retirees, it's more than just a pinch. It can threaten their financial confidence. So I want to get into inflation right now, Eric, and let's talk about why it poses such a uniquely significant problem for retirees.
Well, really, when you're working, hopefully you get raises,
Yeah.
right? And if you're on Social Security, you did get a big raise after that, after 2022, right, with that huge increase. But then of course Medicare rate went up, groceries went up, all these other things go up, right? So that's one of the tough things is if you have a static income and all these things are going up and get more expensive, then you're staying even while everything else is going up past you. And that's not a trajectory you want to be on for a long period of time, right? So you need to have that planned into your financial plan of having that money, get bigger, have it, increase it a little bit each year, and just know it's going to happen. There's going to be always little spikes. I mean, that one was all pretty much because of COVID. The government, the Fed printed a ton of money and to get us all out of that downturn, and that worked, except for anytime they do that causes inflation. It was kind of like we knew that would happen.
I know, yeah.
So that's one of the things that you have to do is just really make sure that's part of your plan.
Can you give us some specific strategies that retirees could use for inflation?
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, if you get Social Security, you do get a little bit of a increase there. If you're lucky enough to have a regular pension, most of those don't go up, but there's not many of those left, right? So unless you're a government employee, and then those do go up with inflation. So the other part can really be is just making sure you have some other guaranteed lifetime income. So you want to have some money that you can basically, with insurance companies nowadays, in essence, create your own pension. And if you have something like that where you've got some guaranteed money coming in, then you can use things like dividends, stock growth, hopefully, other things that you can use to offset those costs. But if you don't have a good base of income and then you're having to cash in more stuff, that can be not a good thing long term, right? Because then you're cashing in that principal, and that can eat up your money faster. So having it be part of your plan, and having, like for us, we always have some money in foundational money, some stuff that's guaranteed. So that way you always have that money there, no matter what the markets are like, what the economic conditions are like, you've got some money that you can take out. Obviously, you have the market money, but in between, we always have about 10 to 20% steady income. And this is stuff that pays good dividends. It's got low volatility. And again, that's why you want to have that there, is because if things get more expensive and you got cash flow coming in, it makes life a lot easier.
Definitely. Definitely a lot easier. So taxes, inflation, managing investments, making sure you don't outlive your savings. That's a lot to handle. And I always think, man, that'd be so hard to handle by yourself. So it's obvious that finding that right financial professional is critical. And that is something, that we talk about on our show, that this is what you do. You focus on retirees. What should people be looking for when they're trying to find someone to guide them through all these complexities?
Yeah, well, I see a lot of people turning to software programs, websites. And I mean, most of all the major brokerage houses have some, some site that says, oh, what's your money going to do? But it's very, very basic kind of math, and it's not rooted in reality, unfortunately. So life isn't so linear that those little programs can work. And I don't think AI is going to be able to handle this quite yet. And, because there's a lot of nuanced, types of things in there. So I would say the first thing, anytime somebody's looking for a financial advisor, well, first of all, do you need one? And if you've never retired before, which most people haven't.
So, that's true.
I would say it would be good not to mess it up and to have some help there. At least talk to somebody, because I always love the phrase, you don't know what you don't know until somebody tells you, right? Until you know it. So you may not even know what you're missing or what you're not even paying attention to. Little things like too much income can cause your Medicare premiums to go up. Very rarely ever find anybody who knows about that, except for the people who got hit with it after the fact.
Yeah.
So they didn't know about it beforehand, typically. And then the other thing too is what type of advisor is that? Is that somebody who works with everybody? Because, if they're working with 30-year-olds and 40-year-olds and you're in your 60s going to retire, very, very different type of, approach for those age timeframes, right? So, really, like for us, we only work with pretty much people doing that shift from working life to retirement, usually late 50s, early 60s is when we have our clients, start working with us. But the other critical thing is when you go to retire, you can pick your tax bracket. Sounds weird. I know. How do you pick your tax? Can't I just pick the lowest one? But you pick the tax bracket by which buckets of money you take money out of. So if you take money out of your savings, well, there's not much of a tax there. Take money out of your IRA, 401k, oh, there's a lot of tax there. So most people say, oh, they pick the one that has the least tax until I have to take all these taxable dollars. And then guess what? You go from 10 to 24% bracket, and you're wondering, how did I end up paying 140% more in taxes? Well, that's because you didn't have advice. And so that's why we're here, really, is to help people, formulate that plan, not just investments, but taxes all intermingled together, because taxes, income, and investments, you cannot separate those three. And then, healthcare issues, if you're trying to retire pre-65, how are you going to pay for it? Post-65, what are the rules there? And then, of course, long-term care, and then who gets your stuff, the legacy issues. So one of the great things we've set up is this digital toolbox. It's a really great resource where it's got a lot of different things like how to empower women investors, Social Security timing decisions, how to make your money last as long as you do, and are you paying too much money in tax in retirement? It's also got a digital copy of my book, Worry Less Wealth. And you can set a time and talk with me, Eric Heckman. So all you got to do is super easy. Text the word toolbox to 800-454-1184. Again, text the word toolbox, 800-454-1184, or download directly at wealthcreatorradio.com.
And you are listening to Wealth Creator Radio with Eric Heckman. I'm Lou Ann Fulmer. So we've been talking about how inflation and taxes can erode retirement savings. But they can be easily overlooked, I think, when you're planning for retirement. So, Eric, tell us how you actually address these specific risks with your clients to help preserve their financial future. Walk us through that.
Yeah. So, one thing we already talked about, I think, was just making sure that income keeps going up.
Right.
You don't want to retire what you made 20 years ago, and and keep it the same number. You want to still be able to go off, have fun, because hey, you got 7 days a weekend, not 2 anymore.
That's right.
So that'd be one thing. And then, really look at tax efficient strategies for your regular dollars. So I'm talking about, non-IRA stuff. So, your brokerage account, your bank savings accounts, how can we make those less taxable and, stretch those dollars even longer? And, of course, taxes is a risk that you're going to always have if they go up. So if we can make some of that money tax-free for the rest of your life, it's going to even help even beyond. So yeah, you got to have that part of the plan.
So, Eric, this type of planning is something that you could offer our listeners as well, right?
No, exactly. So yeah, if you're somebody who's, in their 50s, 60s, trying to figure out, even your 70s, if you're already retired, you're trying to figure out how to make this all work, how to lower your taxes, how do you make sure that money lasts for the rest of your life. Yeah, all you have to do is, you can set up a time to meet with us, in our digital toolbox, or just get a lot of that great information and then, talk to us after that. But all you have to do is text the word toolbox to 800-454-1184. Again, text the word toolbox, 800-454-1184, or download directly at wealthcreatorradio.com.
Be sure to like and subscribe to Wealth Creator Radio so you can stay up to date on ways to build your wealth and create a retirement you and your family will enjoy for years to come. Like and subscribe today and create your wealth for tomorrow with Wealth Creator Radio.
Hi, I'm Lou Ann Fulmer here with Eric Heckman, president of Heckman Financial, where their mission is to get you to and through a worry-less wealth retirement. We want to get to your questions in this part of our show. So we're going to get some insights from Eric on your retirement concerns. And then later on, we're going to keep Eric on his toes and do a little lightning round of think fast questions for him to get to know him a little better. Here's our first question. What could be the impact on my pension if I decide to retire early?
Well, it's obviously going to be lower. I mean, it's nice that you have a pension. It's pretty rare. So it's always going to be a lower earnings depending on the factor, which means less cost of living. But, you get to retire early, right? And enjoy life. So as long as you can afford it and have it, go through your income plan, I think it makes sense. But yeah, you definitely want to do some analysis before that. And especially medical costs can be a huge one if you're, way before 65. So yeah, definitely have a plan before you jump into that one.
Exactly. Don't just do it on your own. Yeah. Okay. Another question here. How might my healthcare costs affect my retirement savings?
Well, of course, healthcare gets more and more expensive as you get older. Not necessarily the premiums. I mean, Medicare is not bad pricing wise. It's usually all in maybe $400 a month each, but it doesn't cover really any dental. There's a lot of copays, and depending on your plan, and then obviously it depends on how many issues you have as you get older, right? So that's one of those ones where you do want to have it budgeted in. It's something that you may not be spending much on today, so maybe it wasn't in your budget, but you definitely need to add it because it will be an effect. I mean, especially I've had a lot of clients that had 5-figure dental bills, and that's a pretty big cost. Yeah. I've had some where you could have bought a decent used car for what they put in their mouth. So,
Weren't you the one that said some lady said she wanted to smile?
At her funeral? Yeah. Because she had $28,000 of dental work in her mouth. So.
Oh, my word. Yeah. Okay. Another question for you. How do I calculate for inflation when trying to figure out if I've saved enough?
Well, inflation is going to always be there. It's going to always be ebbing and flowing and such. So, yeah, all your numbers have to be inflating with inflation. I mean, historically, it's still typically around 3. So run the numbers at that and make sure that, if you're going to retire on $5,000 today, it's not going to be still $5,000 in 10 or 15 years. It's got to be more money. So you need to be withdrawing more as time goes on, or else you're going to be buying less and less and less, and it's going to be a worse and worse lifestyle as you get older, which is not what you want to have happen.
No, we don't. And that's why it's really important to get this figured out. Go see someone like Eric to figure out if you've saved enough, because you guys can do that calculator, and you can set up different scenarios to see if someone's money will last, right?
Yep. No, definitely. So yeah, once we go through that income plan, we take into effect everything. We take into effect your taxes on the various types of accounts, right? If it's Roth, 401k, IRA, regular money, all those kind of issues, run that out with inflation. So have all those costs increasing, and then see if does that money last, and does it last to 75 or 95. 95 is usually you're pretty okay. 75, you might want to work a little longer, right? So.
Okay, another question here that retirees have. When might be the right time to start planning for retirement?
Yeah, it's a slightly loaded question, right? I mean,
Yeah.
hopefully even my sons in their 20s are putting money into retirement accounts. Now, do you count that as planning for retirement? I mean, it's funding for retirement, but I mean, in terms of, am I on track? Am I getting close? I would probably say at least your late 40s is when you might want to kind of have a check-in and do one of those online things that they're out there. But definitely once you hit your 50s, that's when you're in that retirement critical zone where you really need to be paying attention. And, if you're 5 to 10 years out, you definitely need to be having a full plan just to make sure you are on pace. And sometimes people also want to retire earlier or try to, at least not work as hard, maybe work part-time or something like that. And so if that's the goal, then you might even need to do it a little sooner if you're trying to do that, right? So kind of depends on your situation, what you're shooting for. But yeah, I would definitely say it has to be by the time you hit 50, 55 for sure. If not, maybe even a little bit sooner than that. So, I mean, that's one of the things that we do when we sit down with people is we go through the 5 areas. We go through first and foremost, the top 3, which would be creating an income plan, because without income, you can't have a retirement, right? You're just unemployed. But
Right.
so you need to have money coming in the door. And then how are those investments now invested to give you income? So you have to also be starting to switch how you're investing, in your 50s and 60s to get that all lined up in time for that retirement. And then, of course, taxes are always going to be there. So how are we going to minimize that over your lifetime, not just 1 year? So lifetime lowering of your taxes is a critical thing there. Like we said already, healthcare is a big one. And then lastly, legacy. Who's going to get your stuff when you're gone? Is it the people you like, or is it courts and attorney fees? So we want to make sure it goes to the people you actually like a lot more. And so having that all planned out, and those are the 5 areas everybody has a plan for it, even if they haven't written it down. And sometimes it's dictated by the government if you don't write it down. So we want one that you actually decided you picked, right? And so, that's what we do when we do that blueprint to worry less wealth. So the first time we just have a 15 to 30-minute phone call, just find out what your worries, what your concerns are. And then we'll actually take you through that blueprint. We'll actually show you where you're headed and show you, are you on track or not? And, again, there's no right or wrong answer there. It's just going to give you the information that you need to know. And then at that point, that's when you can talk to us about, do you want to work with us? Do you want to take us up on some of the suggestions we're making? So again, there's no obligation, no cost. It's a great way to find out where you're at and find out how do I get even more on track. So, if you want to set up that time, easiest way to do that is just text the word visit to 800-454-1184. Again, text word visit 800-454-1184, or book directly online at wealthcreatorradio.com.
And please keep in mind, all of this is complimentary. This is what Eric does, and he's trying to guide you and help you with your retirement. So take him up on that. And thank you for joining us. This is Wealth Creator Radio with Eric Heckman of Heckman Financial. I'm Luann Fulmer. All right, now we're going to get into our lightning round, okay? And this is kind of a way for us to get to know you, Eric, a little bit better, okay? So I'm going to give you about 2 minutes, and I want you to answer as many of these things as you can, just really quick, okay? And then we'll go back and maybe talk about some of them, all right?
All right.
Here we go. First question, what's on your bucket list?
Well, I still have to keep riding 50 miles in as many countries as I can. And Ireland would be a good one to do next.
Ooh, okay. What's your biggest pet peeve?
Probably people not saying what's on their mind.
Okay. Favorite comfort food?
Let's see. I guess we'll go pizza.
Favorite athlete of all time?
That's a tougher one. Yeah, I don't know. I guess Phelps, maybe.
Who?
Michael Phelps.
Oh, Phelps, the swimmer. Yeah, okay. Favorite book?
I guess I can't say Worry Less Wealth. No, just
you could.
But
You could say that.
no, probably. Well, let's see. I used to read a lot of Kurt Vonnegut books when I was a kid, so like Catch-22 and stuff. So
okay. movie that you will watch over and over again?
Well, any of the teenage John Hughes movies, those are the critical ones,
Okay.
Pretty in Pink and Breakfast Club.
Oh,
all
you're
that stuff.
kidding. Describe your morning routine.
Well, I always work out for 10 or 15 minutes first,
Wow.
then read for 10 or 15 minutes while I eat some food, and
Okay.
then do the rest. So, yep.
Okay. Holiday you look forward most to?
That's a fun one. I don't know. I guess Christmas when the kids were younger, but
Yeah.
now they're older, not quite the same.
Okay. And then earliest financial lesson.
Just learning to save up and buy stuff. So I used to do a lot of that. So
Yeah.
save up my money and go get whatever thing I wanted.
But yours was okay. So wouldn't you buy records? Wasn't that your deal when you were
Yeah,
little?
No, I used to. Well, not that little, but
No, but
teenager. But
teenager,
when I was 14, I had a checking account when I was 14, so I could write checks to Columbia, Music to get all those albums and
Mhm.
use their deal to keep getting the 12 albums for a penny and then cancel and redo it. So, yeah.
You're always good about money, even back then, So, Eric, how can people get more information on coming to you for some guidance?
Yeah, well, the easiest thing is we've got this great toolbox with lots of great downloads so you can read a copy of my book and even a link to set up a time to talk. So all you got to do is text the word toolbox, all one word, toolbox, to 800-454-1184. Again, text word toolbox, 800-454-1184, or download directly at wealthcreatorradio.com.
Imagine for a moment that an intense storm is pounding your house. Will the roof leak? Will the siding peel away? Will your basement flood? If your house is properly built and maintained, you'll be fine. But what about your 401k or your investments? The stock market has had a great run the last few years, but is its current turmoil making you feel uneasy? Are you confident your portfolio is built to weather the financial storm? Now may be a great time to have your retirement plan inspected. Call Eric Heckman of Heckman Financial at 800-454-1184 now. Eric will examine your portfolio and show you if your investments are in need of some weatherproofing. Call Eric Heckman of Heckman Financial today at 800-454-1184. That's 800-454-1184. Investment advisory services offered through Heckman Financial Insurance Services, Inc., a registered investment advisor.
All right. We have come to the time in our show, Eric. I love this part. You give us a story about some retirees that you have helped. Today, you're going to do a wealth success story. It's always a great lesson, to see how things worked out for the best with retirees. So tell us what you have for us today, please.
Yeah, well, I guess talk about Scott and Alex here. So they've been clients for quite some time, and it already, before we met, had done a pretty good job of saving up a bunch. And, over the years, we just kept doing different planning. We were taking advantage of that mega backdoor Roth, where you can fund extra money into your 401k after tax basis and convert it. And so that was helping them build up a ton of money now in tax-free, along with the taxable money that they'd been building up over all the years, funding 401ks and IRAs and such. And, they were getting closer to retiring. And, what happens in Silicon Valley quite often happened, unfortunately, to Scott there, and he got laid off. Very common and definitely coming back around a lot more, it seems like now. And so I think kind of post-COVID, they're, a lot of these places overstaffed, and now they're starting to go, okay, who do we really need?
Yeah.
In his case, they got rid of his entire department.
Oh,
so
my.
that was kind of brutal.
Yeah.
And he'd been there for quite some time. So, now the nice thing is that, they give you, most of these companies will give you some nice exit packages. So he did get, several months of pay and all that stuff, but still it was kind of planning on going for a few more years.
Aw.
And I see this a lot where people, they're supposedly not ageism. There's supposedly not issues like that. But, if you're being interviewed by somebody in a hoodie and sandals and you've got gray hair, they kind of know you're older, right? So,
Yeah.
and they're, especially if they're like, wow, you're older than my dad or something like that, not good. They're not saying that out loud, of course, right?
Right.
But mentally, they're probably saying stuff like that. And And so that's one of the tougher things I find is a lot of people end up, getting retired before they planned on doing it. But the nice thing is when we're running the numbers for them that, they can be fine. They're kind of crazy also in the remodel of the kind of like their dream retirement home. So it wasn't necessarily the best time. But, in some kind of silver linings part, well, when you're remodeling something, there's all these decisions, all these things to make. Well, now you're going to have time to go do those,
You'll
right?
be there, yeah.
Yeah, you'll be able to go see them and watch them and stuff. So, so that's one of those things that I think people, in terms of the moral of the story, is really, if you're 60 plus in Silicon Valley, you need to be, ready in case your job changes, right? In a forcibly manner, right? Where you don't have the option. And, and I've seen it so many times, and it's very hard for people to get a job back into that same industry. Now, a lot of times you go off and do a fun job, right? Work at the Mountain Winery, have some concerts, right? I've got some people working at SAP, enjoying the concerts, the Sharks games, other things, so you could do a job for fun, something that you're interested in. There's lots of different options, but, again, you got to keep those options open, and really figure out what's the best thing for you. But definitely, if you have that planning ahead of time and you're on track and you're on track, if something bad happens, you're going to be okay. Thank you for tuning in to Wealth Creator Radio. I'm Eric Heckman, and it's been a pleasure guiding you towards a more confident and secure retirement. Remember, my responsibility is to always do what's right for you, our client. Together, we can cut out that fancy-sounding financial jargon that doesn't help and focus on what truly matters for your financial future. If you're ready to take control of your retirement planning and build a personalized income plan, contact us at 800-454-1184 and text the word Toolbox to schedule a complimentary consultation. If you're looking for more resources and tools to build your retirement future, don't forget to check out that Wealth Creator Toolbox, your toolkit for a secure and confident retirement journey. Until next time, retire more and worry less with Wealth Creator Radio.
Information provided during Wealth Creator Radio is for illustrative purposes only and does not constitute investment, tax, or legal advice. Information has been obtained from sources that are deemed to be reliable, but their accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed. Always consult with a qualified investment, legal, or tax professional before taking any action. Annuity guarantees are based solely on the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the issuing company. Individuals should thoroughly review the contract for specific details of the product features and costs. Income payments and withdrawals from deferred annuities are generally taxable as ordinary income in the year they are taken. Eric Heckman offers investment advisory services through Heckman Financial and Insurance Services, Inc., a registered investment advisor. Any tax advice given as part of this presentation is not intended to be used and cannot be used by the taxpayer for the purpose of avoiding tax penalties or promoting, marketing, or recommending to another party any matter or transaction addressed herein. The views and opinions expressed in the program are not necessarily those of the radio station or its sponsors, and they should not construe as legal, tax, or investment advice. You should always consult the appropriate advisor before making any financial decision.